Hey, what's up, everyone? This is DJ Brother Zach. You know, I've gotten into discussions around the radio station with like Tommy and Shane, and we talk about the certain wine that they drink in the Bible. They say there's old wine and new wine. So this really got me thinking, and I wanted to explore the topic a little deeper. What did Jesus actually drink? In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus takes a cup of wine and says, "This is my blood." The Eucharist, or communion, or the Lord's table, a ritual during which millions of Christians worldwide consume some wine or grape juice in an act of communion with Jesus Christ. But when Jesus raises his cup in the story, what did the gospel writer imagine was in there? It's pretty safe to assume that they meant red wine specifically, otherwise the whole "this is my blood" really doesn't make much sense. But to just say red wine is just too imprecise of a term. What would an ancient Judean drink? There are over 150 different kinds, so the best we can do is identify some of the likely candidates. Some Judean wines from the first century shared a similar flavor to dried grape wines like the Amarone wine from northern Italy. These are made first by dyeing the grapes on straw mats for a few months before pressing them. Drying the grapes concentrates the sugar, making for a very sweet and very dark red wine. This wine also tends to have a very raisiny taste to it. Dried grape wines stretch all the way back to the Iron Age during the height of the Kingdom of Judah. There was a jar discovered at Lachish, a southern Judah Heights city, was stamped with the inscription "made from black grapes." There were other jars found in the region that were also stamped with very dark wine, which may also reference this type of wine. Now, of course, these artifacts are centuries older than the time of Jesus, but this style remained popular during his lifetime. Under the Roman Empire, the Romans made a raisin wine called Passum. And we should look to the Roman Empire to answer this question: what would Jesus drink? Judeans were definitely importing wine from Italy. For example, wine jars from Masada, a fortress and hangout spot for King Herod the Great, were presumably imported directly to him from Italy. So our candidate is a super dark blood red wine. But don't go opening up a bottle of Amarone and think that you're drinking Jesus juice. Ancient wine was very different to what we can buy today. First, let's talk about the additives. Modern wine connoisseurs might be surprised to hear that everybody in the ancient Mediterranean world mixed their wine with all sorts of stuff. Tree resins like myrrh and frankincense, pepper and capers, cinnamon and honey, and dried fruits like pomegranates. Romans also made a wine called mulsum, which was a spiced wine mixed with a bunch of honey during the fermentation process. They would add these additives in to cover up bad taste and to try out new flavors, and sometimes to try to preserve the wine better, especially for traveling long distances. Tree resin in particular was used to waterproof wine. Many studies have been done on Roman drinking habits, and many times Romans would dilute their wine with 1 part wine and 8 parts water, and sometimes they would even add a bit of seawater for flavor. Alcohol from that time was definitely strong enough to get you drunk. Studies have shown that most wines contain 13% alcohol by volume, and that it was actually safer to drink than unfiltered water, and Romans drank it all the time, and it was not necessarily a luxury good. Scholars say that Romans drank at least 1 liter of wine a day, and it was even part of farm rations for Roman workers, receiving about a bottle per day. Now the big question is, did Jews dilute their wine? Well, no one really knows. Most scholars don't think it was common among Jews in the Second Temple. Also, the Hebrew Bible itself implies that diluted wine is a moral degradation. In Isaiah 1:22, it says, "Your silver has become dross, your best wine mixed with water." So whether or not Jesus would have mixed his wine with water really depends on how much he adopted from Greco-Roman culture. By the 1st century CE, Judea was under Greek or Roman control for a long time, and lots of Jews were thoroughly Hellenized. The Jewish text 2nd Maccabees, which was probably written by Hellenized Jews, mentions that wine mixed with water is sweet and delicious and enhances one's enjoyment. The Mishnah, the collection of rabbinical texts compiled the decades and centuries after Jesus' lifetime, also mentions rabbis mixing water with wine, but in the end, we just don't know. After all, this is an exercise in educated guesswork. So every wine Jesus would have drunk, it was almost certainly spiced and resiny. It was also probably sweet and raisiny, and it probably was not diluted unless he was a fan of Roman drinking culture. But this is still uncertain. We still await a taste of the true Holy Land wine of King David and Jesus of Nazareth. But for now, all we can deduce is that the wine of Jesus' time was an Amarone mixed with a bunch of tree resins and some spices.